Hey, welcome to the briefing. What I'm going to cover with you today is this. A past first piece is not always a stable run. There is a quiet moment on a production floor that can fool a good leader. It is not the alarm, it is not the defect report, it is not the customer call, it is not the quality hold. It is the calm right after release. The changeover is complete. The first piece passed, the setup sheet is signed, quality has looked at the part, the line lead is ready, the operator has the station back in rhythm, planning finally sees the order moving again. And in that moment, the whole operation exhales a little. That is the dangerous part. Not because relief is wrong, relief is normal. When a line has been down, when the schedule is tight, when every minute is being watched, a past first piece feels like control coming back into the room. But relief is not stability. A past first piece tells you the run had an acceptable starting condition. It does not tell you what the run will do after 10 minutes of speed, heat, motion, material behavior, small adjustments, repeated cycles, and real production pressure. And that is where leaders get caught. They do not ignore the process. They do not blow off quality. They do not hate standards. They trust the first clean signal too long. And once that first clean signal gets old, it can become a stale read. A stale read is information that may have been true when you made the call, but no longer matches what the line is telling you now. That is the whole issue today. A manufacturing leader cannot just read the release. They have to read the run. I have made versions of this mistake before, in different environments. I have trusted an early confirmation because it was clean, official, and good enough for the moment. I have looked at a situation and thought, we are cleared to move. Then later realized the situation had changed faster than my read changed with it. That kind of lesson sticks with you, not because it makes you scared to decide. The answer is not fear. The answer is not hesitation. The answer is not turning every small signal into a full stop. The lesson is this: once work begins, the work keeps producing information. If you lead people, equipment, processes, projects, or any operation under pressure, you have to stay connected to the information the work is giving you after the first decision is made. That is what dynamic assessment is for. Dynamic assessment is the discipline of updating your read while conditions are still moving. It is a practical leadership control. It asks what has changed, what is repeating, what is drifting, and what decision needs to be updated before the cost expands. In manufacturing, that question can save a run. It can also protect a team from lazy blame, because when the line starts drifting after release, the easiest answer is usually a person. The operator missed it, quality rushed it, maintenance did not catch it, the supervisor pushed too hard, planning created the pressure. Maybe there is truth in some of that. Accountability still matters. But if the run condition changed after the first piece passed, then blame without an updated read will only give you a cleaner story and a weaker process. Let me put this on the floor. You are watching a packaging line in a mid-sized food manufacturing plant. The product is not exotic. The work is routine enough that people can get comfortable with it, but it is important enough that small drift can become expensive fast. The line has just changed over from one package size to another. It is the same product family, similar packaging, similar stations, familiar crew, but the details changed. New film roll, different label position, different case count, different date code placement, slightly different setup points. Nothing unusual by itself, but enough to matter. The morning had already gone sideways. A prior run finished late. Maintenance had to clear a recurring feed issue. Quality is covering 2 lines. The customer order on this run is attached to a tight shipment window, and planning has already asked twice whether afternoon shift can recover the lost time. So the changeover carries pressure before the line even restarts. The operator completes the setup. The line lead checks the job packet. The first package is inspected. The date code is present. The label placement is acceptable. The seal looks good. The first piece passes. Quality signs off. The supervisor releases the run. For a while, the line looks fine. Cases begin stacking. The crew settles in. The production board starts looking less ugly. Planning gets the update it wanted. The supervisor can finally move attention to another issue. That is how it starts. Then a small thing happens. The line lead notices the operator adjusting the film tracking more than usual. Nobody panics. Operators make small adjustments all the time. A few minutes later, 2 packages are set aside because the label is close to the edge of the acceptable range. Still not a crisis. Then quality mentions the date code looks slightly inconsistent on a small sample. Not missing, not unreadable, just inconsistent. Maintenance walks by and hears the same feed hesitation that caused trouble earlier, but the line is still running. A pallet count is still moving in the right direction. The order is still recoverable. The supervisor wants the line to keep going. So what is the real decision? The decision is not simply stop or run. That is too shallow. The real decision is whether the supervisor is going to keep trusting the release condition or update the read based on the current run condition. That is the fork in the road. This is where the visible misread happens. The supervisor sees a line that passed first piece and is still producing. That looks like control. But the deeper read says something else. The line is producing, but it is requiring more adjustment than normal. The product is acceptable, but the label trend is moving toward the edge. The date code is present, but the mark is becoming inconsistent. The machine is running, but a repeat symptom is showing up. The shipment is moving, but the risk inside that movement is getting heavier. That is not one dramatic failure. It is an operating picture, changing in pieces. And a lot of leaders miss it because each piece can be explained away. The adjustment is normal. The label is still inside range. The date code is still present. The machine is still running, and the first piece passed. The schedule needs recovery. Every one of those statements may be true, but when true statements point in different directions, the leader has to connect them. That is dynamic assessment. It is the leader saying, I am not going to wait for this to become obvious before I respect the pattern. Think about that for a second. How often does a bad run become obvious only after the cost is already built, after the product is sorted, after the batch is held, after the crew worked overtime, after maintenance gets called under pressure, after planning has to rebuild the schedule, after quality has to explain why the trend was not contained earlier, after the customer update gets harder than it needed to be. The problem was not invisible, it was early. And early signals are easy to dismiss when the line is finally moving. Now I want to make a distinction here. Dynamic assessment is not the same as being nervous. A nervous leader chases every sound, every comment, every minor variation, and every possible issue. That burns people out. It slows the floor for the wrong reasons. It teaches teams that the leader cannot tell the difference between noise and signal. That is not what I am talking about. A disciplined leader watches for repeated signals, converging signals, and changing conditions. Repeated signals means the same thing shows up more than once. Converging signals means different parts of the process are pointing toward the same risk. Changing conditions means the current run no longer matches the condition that existed when release was approved. That is the difference. If one package is slightly off, maybe you watch it. If the operator is adjusting more than normal, quality sees edge movement, the date code is becoming inconsistent, and maintenance hears the old symptom again, that is a different read. Not because one signal is loud, because several quiet signals are now lining up. The question becomes, what is the run becoming? That is a better question than did the first piece pass? Because the first piece is history. Useful history, but still history. The run is alive now. It is moving now. It is changing now. The leader has to read now. If the supervisor handles this well, the response does not need to be dramatic. They can step into the line with control. They can ask the operator, when did the extra adjustment start? They can ask the line lead, is this more frequent than the last job? They can ask quality, are we seeing a one-off or is the trend moving? They can ask maintenance, is that feed hesitation the same symptom from earlier or something different? They can ask planning, how much room do we actually have if we pause for a short check now versus sorting later? Those are not academic questions. Those are floor questions. They are fast. They are practical. They respect the people closest to the work. and they do something important. They keep the decision connected to current reality. Maybe the answer is to keep running with a defined check after the next short sequence. Maybe the answer is to slow the line briefly and verify the label and date code condition. Maybe the answer is to pull maintenance in now for a quick look before the feed issue turns into downtime. Maybe the answer is to hold a small quantity until quality confirms the trend. Maybe the answer is to adjust the release standard for the next similar changeover because the first piece check did not capture what happened after the line settled. Notice what is not happening. The supervisor is not giving a generic speech about paying attention. The supervisor is not blaming the operator from a distance. The supervisor is not telling quality to be better without inspecting the condition. The supervisor is not telling maintenance it is still running, so leave it alone. The supervisor is not chasing everything. They are updating the read and choosing the smallest control that protects the run. That is manufacturing leadership under pressure. Not loud, not dramatic, controlled. Now let's look at the consequence if the supervisor does not update the read, because this is where the cost usually hides. If they keep pushing, the board may look better for the next hour. Output goes up, cases move. The schedule looks like it is recovering. That is the temptation. But if the drift continues, that hour of output may turn into product that has to be inspected, reworked, held, or scrapped. Now quality has to expand checks. Operators have to sort what they just built. Maintenance has to respond under more pressure. Planning loses the recovery window anyway. The supervisor has to explain why early warnings were treated as normal. The customer update becomes more difficult. The team gets frustrated because the line was moving, but the movement did not turn into usable progress. That is the point. Movement is not the same as control. Output is not the same as shippable product. A running line is not automatically a stable line. This is also why this issue is so hard to catch in the moment. Nobody feels like they are making a reckless decision. The supervisor feels practical. The operator feels responsible. Quality feels busy but engaged. Maintenance feels realistic about availability. Planning feels justified because the customer window is real. Each person is responding to a valid pressure point. That is why the leader has to be careful with the word acceptable. Acceptable at release does not always mean acceptable across the run. Acceptable on one sample does not always mean stable through repeated cycles. Acceptable while the machine is cold may not mean acceptable once the line has settled into speed. Acceptable while everyone is watching may not mean controlled once attention shifts back to normal production flow. The word acceptable can hide a lot of risk when the situation is moving. So the leader has to ask a sharper question, acceptable under what condition? And when that question becomes normal on the floor, people get better at surfacing early signals. Operators explain what changed. Quality names the pattern sooner. Maintenance separates harmless noise from warning behavior. Planning receives a more honest update. The supervisor stops managing from hope and starts managing from the current condition. That question is not technical overkill. It is operational discipline. It keeps the team from using yesterday's proof against today's evidence. If you lead manufacturing work, you already know that. But under pressure, even experienced leaders can start acting like movement is proof. It is not proof. It is only motion. Control is different. Control means the process is behaving inside the condition you believe it is in. Control means the checks still match the risk. Control means the signals are being read while they can still be acted on. Control means the leader does not let yesterday's sign-off overpower today's evidence. That is the heart of this briefing. Do not let the first clean answer outrank the current signal. There is also a team consequence here, and I do not want to skip it. When leaders ignore changing signals, people on the floor learn what matters. They learn whether speaking up is useful or just annoying. They learn whether quality concerns are treated as protection or obstruction. They learn whether maintenance warnings are respected before failure. They learn whether supervisors care about actual stability or just visible output. They learn whether operators will be blamed later for weak signals they tried to surface earlier. That matters, because if the team believes the leader only respects problems after they become undeniable, they will stop giving early signals with confidence. They may still mention things, but the tone changes, the urgency changes, the trust changes. An operator says, "It has been doing that a little, but does not push harder because last time nobody cared." A quality tech sees a trend, but waits for more proof because they do not want to be accused of slowing production. A maintenance tech hears a symptom, but knows the line will keep running until it fails. A line lead sees repeated adjustments, but treats it as normal because the board is behind. That is how a plant loses early warning discipline, not all at once, through repeated moments where leaders choose the old read over the current signal. And then later, when the cost shows up, everyone acts surprised, but the floor knew, the process knew. The line was speaking. Leadership was just listening too late. So how do you use this without turning it into a complicated system? Start with a simple mental check. Ask, what did release prove? That question keeps you honest. The release may have proved the line could start. It may have proved the first part met the requirement. It may have proved the job packet and setup were close enough to begin. Good. Now ask, what is the run proving now? That second question keeps you current. If the run is proving stability, keep moving. If the run is proven drift, update the decision. If the run is proving uncertainty, define the next control point. This does not need to take all day. In fact, dynamic assessment should make you faster where it matters because you stop waiting for the expensive version of the problem. You stop waiting for a full quality hold before you respect a trend. You stop waiting for full downtime before you respect a machine symptom. You stop waiting for a pile of rework before you respect repeated adjustments. You stop waiting for customer pressure before you respect internal warning signs. That is not being cautious for the sake of caution. That is being accurate before the miss gets bigger. I also want you to watch your language on the floor. Language reveals the read. If you hear yourself saying, "It passed first piece, so keep going," slow down. That sentence may be fine if the run is stable, but if the run is changing, that sentence is a warning sign. If you hear, "Wyken, it is still running," ask whether running means stable. If you hear, "It is only a few parts," ask whether those few parts share the same pattern. And if you hear, "Maintenance already cleared it," ask whether the current symptom matches what was cleared earlier. If you hear, "Quality signed off," ask whether the current condition still matches the sign-off condition. If you hear, "We cannot stop now," ask what happens if you keep producing questionable output. Those questions are not meant to slow leaders down. They are meant to keep pressure from narrowing the read, because pressure makes shallow explanations feel useful. And manufacturing does not forgive shallow reads for long. Sooner or later, the line tells the truth. The only question is whether you listen while the truth is still cheap. Let me bring this back to Marcus or any supervisor standing in that position. He does not need to become the most technical person on the floor. He does not need to replace quality. He does not need to replace maintenance. He does not need to micromanage the operator. He needs to own the read. That means he respects the first piece pass, but does not hide behind it. He respects schedule pressure, but does not let it erase process signals. He respects operator accountability, but does not turn every drift into an operator problem. He respects quality sign-off, but knows sign-off is not the same as continued stability. He respects maintenance capacity, but does not wait until a warning becomes failure. He keeps the operation connected. That is the leadership function. The supervisor is often the one person standing where production, quality, maintenance, planning, labor, and customer pressure collide. That role cannot survive on stale information. It needs a live read. Dynamic assessment gives language to that live read, not perfect information, not endless analysis. A current operating picture good enough to choose the next controlled action. That is the standard. And this applies beyond packaging, beyond automotive, beyond any single type of manufacturing. It applies to assembly lines, food production, component plants, machine shops, shared equipment operations, packaging cells, fabrication environments, and high-mix runs where changeovers happen all day. Anytime the start condition can differ from the run condition, this lesson matters. Anytime a line can technically pass and still begin drifting, this lesson matters. Anytime the pressure to ship can make weak signals look acceptable, this lesson matters. Anytime the team trusts paperwork more than the current process behavior, this lesson matters, because the danger is not paperwork. The danger is pretending paperwork is newer than the line. The line is always giving you the latest update. The paperwork tells you what should be happening. The line tells you what is happening. You need both. But when they separate, the leader has to notice. That is dynamic assessment in plain language. So here's the takeaway I want you to carry. A past first piece matters. Treat it with respect, but do not treat it like a promise the run is not earned yet. The first piece is the start of confidence. The run has to maintain confidence. If you see repeat adjustments, tolerance movement, material behavior changes, quality comments, micro stops, maintenance symptoms, or small rework forming, do not wait for the plant to pay the full bill before you update your read. Ask what changed, ask what repeated, ask what is converging, ask whether the current run still matches the condition you released. Ask where you can regain control without creating unnecessary disruption. Then make the call. Keep running with a check. Pause and verify. Hold a small quantity. Bring quality closer. Bring maintenance earlier. Adjust the release expectation for next time. Whatever the decision is, make it from the current read, not the old confidence. That is the discipline, not fear, not hesitation, not drama, control. And if you are a leader listening to this, I want you to look at your own environment. Where are you trusting a first pass too long? Where are you treating a sign-off like it is still current after conditions have changed? Where are people giving you early signals that you have started to call noise because the schedule is tight? Where are you accepting movement because it looks better than stopping to verify? Where are you waiting for the problem to become expensive before you respect what the floor is already telling you? That is where the work is. The best leaders are not the ones who panic early. They are not the ones who freeze. They are the ones who can tell the difference between noise and a pattern while there is still time to act. That takes discipline. That takes humility. That takes attention to the people closest to the work. And it takes the willingness to update your own read before the situation forces you to. A past first piece is not always a stable run. Read the release, then read the run, then read the signal, then update the decision. Use dynamic assessment. Move with control. Thanks for listening to the briefing.